I'm going to talk about a subject today that is vital to understand. Last night watching that so-called wolf moon or whatever the heck it was in that eclipse, and I thought of something. I thought, darkness there already. The moon reflects the light of the sun, but that's all it does. It doesn't have its own sustainable light. But when I'm looking at that eclipse and I'm thinking, okay, it's already dark. The moon's there shining a little bit, dim light, but yet the eclipse happens and it becomes even darker. And I wanted to talk about darkness today because darkness is the backdrop of the light of God. Ultimately, without that darkness, you would never appreciate when the light does come. Okay, night and darkness. Darkness, the keeping back of light, may furnish the most instructive lesson in all nature. We usually take the night for granted, as if it were normal, an essential and indispensable feature of the human existence. Quite the contrary is the truth. In the new earth, there will be no night and no darkness. Revelation 21:25. The literal meaning of the Hebrew stem, as usual, gives us a correct clue as to its place in God's plans. It signifies keep back. It is abnormal. God is keeping back the light during the first few eons in order that men may appreciate the light. It is a daily lesson that all have learned to some extent. It has made many sun worshippers, but it leads none to worship the God who made the sun. Like sin, it is a temporary and intermittent evil introduced as a foil to reveal the light, because it gives us a temporary respite from the duties of the day and helps us to recuperate our failing faculties by entering into a death-like sleep. We welcome the shades of night and fail to see its essentially evil character. This is shown us in the scriptures, where the darkening of the sun, moon, and stars, and the kingdom of the wild beast. Matthew chapter 24, verse 29, Mark chapter 13, verse 24, and Revelation chapter 8, verse 12, are shuddering portents of judgment. Some of the sons of the kingdom will be cast into utter darkness, where there will be lamentation and gnashing of teeth. Matthew chapter 7, verse 12. But all this is only a picture of the spiritual darkness which holds sway in the world today. At the advent of Christ, even Israel, the one nation to whom God has revealed himself, is representing as sitting in darkness and the shadow of death. Isaiah chapter 9, verse 2, and Luke chapter 1, verse 79. If that was true of them, how much more so of the nations today? The unintelligent hearts of the so-called heathen nations are certainly as dark as ever. Romans chapter 1, verse 21. Even so-called Christendom, with all its religion and ritual, has far more darkness than light. Few indeed have turned their backs on the light of nature and reason, and entered the holy place and reveled in the light of revelation. And of these, far fewer bask in the bright blessing of the Shekinah glory. For they do not see that the curtain has been rent, so that the illumination of the knowledge of the glory of God beams upon them in the face of Christ. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 6. The activity of God's Spirit is manifested in the three L's, E-L-L-S, light, life, and love. The passivity of his power is evident in the three hells, darkness, death, and indifference. If we take the word hell in its true meaning of that which is imperceptible, we perceive light and experience life and revel in love. But our scenes are numbed by darkness. We enter the imperceptible in death, and we are callous in indifference. So far as the earth is concerned, God created light in one verse in Genesis, and life in the first chapter. but it takes the whole Bible to create love. Figuratively speaking, light is only the root and life, the tree on which the love is the fruit. These are 3 stages in God's revelation, but the highest is love. Many years ago, a manuscript was sent in by a very intelligent and beloved brother, seeking to show that all evil is due to the absence of God. At that time, we did not know the vast difference between evil and sin, so that there seemed to be such evidence in its favor. Adam sinned when God was absent from Eden. But there were other scriptures which seemed to show that evil occurred in his presence. In fact, many of his judgments consisted in the infliction of evil. Why he is even said to be the creator of evil. I was very much inclined to publish the article of this beloved brother, even if I had my doubts. Now I am most thankful that I did not do so, for it led to the study and separation of evil and sin. It is sin, not evil, that comes from the withholding of God's Spirit. Adam and Eve indeed had light and life. Nevertheless, they were in a measure of darkness, for their eyes were closed to spiritual light, even if they did see the forbidden fruit. The serpent predicted that their eyes would be unclosed if they ate of it, and sure enough, they had never seen themselves until after they ate. More than that, although they had more light, which should have kept them from sinning, death was now operating in them. The lack of life is even more proactive of sin than the lack of light. The lack of life is even more proactive of sin than the lack of light. As the lack of life is led to the lack of love, so that they feared God and hid themselves. For the present, let us thank God for the darkness that enables us to appreciate the light. Yet at the same time, we may exult in the future, when we will bask in time. When we will bask in the full blaze of his effulgence without being blinded by his glory. Then the light that restored the ruined earth will restore us and enable us to enjoy the full fruit of Aeonian life and everlasting love. Okay, so the backdrop is necessary of darkness, and we can appreciate it in that sense. Being in full darkness when you can't see nothing, and then you get that blast of light. It is so appreciative. The world itself today, in this wicked eon, they want to revel in the darkness, but that is spiritual darkness. They may have the sunshine outside, but what they have is literally spiritual darkness. They cannot see God. They do not know God. They haven't been given truth. They are sons of stubbornness, so they revel in the darkness. This is what we do not do. We need the light and the effulgence of God's glory shining upon us continually through this darkness, through the darkness of the wicked eon. So hold on to that. Hold on to the light of God, but do appreciate what God has given you as far as contrast is concerned, because the darkness is necessary in order to illuminate the light. It is Monday. Yes, it is. Last night, I worked all night and it was dead at work. I didn't do a whole lot last night. I sat in the shack. But I'm telling you, I work at night. I work overnight in the darkness, literally. And I do appreciate the day, but I don't even see much of that because I'm sleeping most of it, which kind of sucks. Sucks more than you know. But I keep moving on. I keep my faith because God has kept me with the faith of Christ. And I'm able to move forward, continue on. And God has kept me for that, to be able to bring it to you. I love you all, and we will see you tomorrow.